Do you want to learn about astronomy? Do you want to learn about the stars, the planets, the universe? Well, you're going to anyway. Did you know that until roughly 1922, most people thought that the universe only consisted of the Milky Way galaxy? The only ideas that the universe went outside of the Milky Way galaxy were simply just ideas. They had no evidence or any way to support their claims. But how did we find out that the universe went outside the Milky Way galaxy? Well, there's one special astronomer you can thank for that. Edwin Hubble. But before we get into all his scientific discoveries, let's take a look at his background. Edwin Hubble was born in November of 1889 in Missouri and moved to Illinois when he was 11. He was known more for his athletic ability rather than his intellectual achievements growing up. He played basketball, baseball, football, and ran track throughout high school and college. He attended the University of Chicago to originally study law, but it all led up to a bachelor's degree in science in 1910. Edwin Hubble led the University of Chicago to their first conference title in basketball in 1907. He eventually went to the Queen's College in Oxford to study the study and theory of law. But yet, once again, he got away from law and got a master's degree in literature and Spanish. So where does astronomy play into all this? Hubble had always had an interest in astronomy ever since he was a little kid. After his father died in 1913, he returned to the Midwest and taught Spanish, physics, and math in Indiana. After 1 year of teaching, he went back to the University of Chicago to finally study astronomy. He went on to receive his PhD in 1917, but hold on! Very quickly following Hubble's PhD, Germany decided to screw with the world, and so the United States declared war on them. He quickly rushed to get his PhD, and then he voluntarily joined the US Army. After World War I, Hubble spent a year at Cambridge continuing his studies of astronomy. He then worked for the US Army at the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, helping them with research and experience with ballistics and bombs during World War II. Hubble remained staff at Mount Wilson until his death in 1953. Unrelated controversial topic. He was raised as a Christian. Alright, enough about his past, now we're going to move on to his scientific discoveries. Edwin Hubble was the man who essentially found out that the universe goes on past the Milky Way galaxy. But how did he do it? Well, Hubble used the Hooker telescope at Mount Wilson Observatory and found several the Cepheid variables, which are stars used as means to determine distance from the galaxy. He found these Cepheid variables in many different spiral nebulas. His observations in 1922 and 1923 showed that these spiral nebulas were far too distant to be a part of the Milky Way galaxy, and they were actually entire galaxies in their own. He had his findings published in the New York Times in 1924. Hubble's findings reportedly changed the scientific view of the universe. It paved the way for future astronomers and scientists. Hubble also developed the most commonly used system for classifying galaxies. He grouped them based off of appearance in such groups that later became known as the Hubble sequence. This guy also has his own law. Hubble's law states, objects observed in deep space are found to have a Doppler shift interpretable as relative velocity away from Earth. This Doppler shift measured velocity of various galaxies receding from the Earth is approximately proportional to their distance from the Earth for galaxies up to a few hundred megaparsecs away. That took so long to freaking read, oh my god. This law is the first observational basis for the expansion of the universe and is one of the most used pieces of evidence in the Big Bang model. The motion of astronomical objects in this universe expansion is known as the Hubble flow. The rate of expansion of the universe became known as the Hubble Constant after Hubble confirmed the idea. But you might be thinking, what about the Hubble telescope? The Hubble telescope was launched into orbit in 1990 and is still in operation. It is not the first telescope out there, but it is one of the most effective in gathering research. It takes insanely detailed visible light images and can take pictures in near ultraviolet, visible, and near infrared spectra pictures. Edwin Hubble would have won a Nobel Prize, but at the time, Nobel Prize people that gave the Nobel Prizes were not accepting astronomers. So, in a nutshell, Edwin Hubble discovered that the universe is pretty big and it keeps going, it's expanding. That's the Hubble constant. You got that? Got the Hubble's law, Hubble sequence, Hubble telescope, Hubble flow, Hubble constant, Hubble bubba. Ha! Got him. Edwin Hubble, ladies and gentlemen.
Less than a century ago, the bright arc of our Milky Way was thought to contain all the stars in the universe. But astronomers were perplexed by a cigar-shaped object in the autumn sky called the Andromeda Nebula. Some astronomers thought it was another galaxy like our Milky Way. It too had a flattened disk shape. But how far away was it? In the early 1920s, astronomer Edwin Hubble photographed the nebula in detail. he found a pulsating star hidden deep in one of its spiral arms. Edwin Hubble used it to calculate the distance to the Andromeda Nebula. This showed it was far beyond our Milky Way. Andromeda, in fact, was really a separate galaxy. The Hubble Space Telescope has recently observed this star as a tribute to the landmark discovery.